recesses of my mind as I grew older. But as I sat alone in the old family house, the familiar creaks and groans of the settling structure seemed to whisper sinister secrets, and I couldn't shake the feeling that I was not alone. The house had been in my family for generations, a grand Victorian relic that stood isolated on the outskirts of town. My parents had long since passed, and my siblings had moved away, leaving me as the sole occupant of the echoing halls. I had returned to the house to settle some affairs after years of avoiding the place, its memories too painful to confront. The first night was uneventful. The silence, a comforting blanket that enveloped me as I drifted into sleep. But on the second night, things changed. It began with a tapping at the window, a rhythmic pattern that seemed too deliberate to be the work of branches in the wind. I rose from my bed, the floorboards cold beneath my feet, and approached the window. Peering into the darkness, I saw nothing but my own reflection staring back at me, pale and wide-eyed. I returned to bed, convincing myself it was nothing, but sleep eluded me. The tapping resumed, joined by a faint whispering that seemed to come from the walls themselves. The words were indistinct, a language I couldn't understand, but the tone was unmistakable. It was a plea, a desperate, mournful cry that chilled me to the bone. The following days were a blur of paranoia. I would catch glimpses of shadows darting just out of sight, hear the soft patter of footsteps trailing behind me, only to turn and find nothing. The whispers grew louder each night, a cacophony of voices that seemed to be closing in on me. I decided to investigate the history of the house, hoping to find a rational explanation. The local library held archives of the town's past, and there, buried in yellowed newspapers and dusty tomes, I discovered the truth. My family home had once been an asylum, a place where the troubled were locked away, hidden from society's judgmental eyes. The whispers were those of the forgotten, their stories etched into the very walls of the house. Armed with this knowledge, I returned home, determined to confront the past. As night fell, the whispers returned, but this time I listened. I walked through the house from room to room, and as I did, the voices grew clearer. They spoke of pain, of loneliness, of the longing to be remembered. In the attic I found it, a hidden room, sealed behind a false wall. The air was thick with the scent of decay, and as I pried the boards away, I was met with a sight that will haunt me forever. Skeletons, dozens of them, lay piled in the small space, the remnants of those who had died forgotten and alone. The whispers ceased, replaced by a heavy silence. I understood then that the spirits of the house had not sought to frighten me, but to lead me to this grim discovery, to ensure that their suffering would not go unnoticed. I contacted the authorities, and the remains were given a proper burial. The house was cleansed, the spirits finally laid to rest. But even now, as I sit in my modern apartment in the heart of the city, I can't shake the feeling that something followed me from that house, a whisper in the dark that reminds me of the thin veil between life and death,